Okay. Let's get started. This is worksheet 11. So this is just a quick review of all of the noun, verb, and adjective forms that we've done up to this point. So this one should be a gimme. So please, please, please try to do this worksheet before you watch this video. Okay, so if you haven't tried the worksheet yet, you might want to come back to this a little bit later, only because this is really a test of where you're at. So you should really just be using this video to check yourself. So first and second declension nouns, right? First declension nouns are just one set of endings that we use. Okay, easy money. Second, you have the masculine and feminine set versus the neuter set. Okay, so remember, we can have some second declension feminine nouns too. Don't forget about those. So when it comes to second declension or any declension, when it's neuter, right, that's where you have the slightly different endings. So you have the neuter plurals ending in A, and you have the nominative and accusative being the same. Okay? Adjectives are going to use the same endings, but just remember that when you're dealing with the adjective, you got to think about which gender you're going to use. So for instance, your friend, right, we're going with amicos, amici. So we can fill in our noun right here, amicos, amici. Because we're dealing with a masculine friend, we're going to use wester, right? We're going to use that first form. So wester. Is that E going to stick around? Well, if I look at the other forms, we have wester, westra, right? So that E is gone. So when I go to decline this word, it's wester, westri. Westro, westrum, westro, westri, westrorum, westris, westros, westris. And my noun, because it's second declension and it's masculine, no weird stuff going on, it's going to have the same endings as well. So amicus, amici, amico, amicum, amico, amici, amicorum, amicis, amicos, amicis. Okay. What's up, Johnny? Just doing a little review for the kiddos. Oops, and I don't know why that changed to westry. There you go. So wester, oh, it's auto-correcting me. It's messing with me, right? So wester, westry, westro, westrum, westro, westri, westrorum, westris, westros, westris. And the same thing with amicus. You love to see it, right? All right, we got a slow sailor. So the word for sailor is a nauta, right? Nauta, nautai. It is a first declension noun. You love to see that. Nautai, nautam, whoops. Nautam, nauta. In the plural, nautai, nautarum, nautis, nautas, nautis. Easy money. But be very, very careful, because even though it's first declension, it is a masculine noun, which means we're going to describe that sailor as tardus. Okay, T-R-D-U-S. And that word tardus is second declension. The masculine adjective uses the second declension ending. So tardus, tardi, tardo, tardum, tardo, tardi, tardorum, tardis, tardos, tardis. No, it's all good. Good to see you. Hey, Rajika. I love when you guys stop by. It's my favorite. So the noun nauta is first declension, but the adjective, because we need to use the masculine adjective tardus, is second declension. Right? And that's okay. They live in perfect harmony, just different declensions. We have the tall ash tree, right? Ornus here is an ash tree. It's a new word for me. Looked it up when I was making this worksheet. Ornus, orni, so it is second declension. Orno, ornum, orno. And the plural, orni, ornorum, ornis, ornos, ornis. But it is a feminine noun. So between altus, alta, and altum, I have to use alta. And alta is first declension. So alta, altai, altai, altum, alta, oops, altai, altarum, altis, altas, altis. So you always, the noun is whatever the declension the noun is. The adjective, you have to choose the form that matches the gender. So if it's a masculine noun, you pick altus and use second declension. If it's a feminine noun, use alta, first declension. If it's a neuter noun, use altum, second neuter. So remember that these will not always have the same endings, and that's totally fine. That's our taco grande situation, right? So you just have to be ready for that. Moving on to verbs, okay? First and second conjugation verbs. So we're looking at the first and second principal parts because we're doing present, imperfect, and future. So we only care about these first two principal parts. We don't care about flavi, we don't care about flatus. We'll come back to those when we do perfect and pluperfect and future perfect, but for what we've done so far, we only care about these guys. So this one, fleo flaere, that's a second conjugation verb, so that E is going to be very important. The first person singular is always just the very first principal part, right? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we can see them a little bit better. Right. There we go. So I cry, fleo. You cry, flace. Make sure all of these are bolded. Fleo, flace, flet, he or she cries, flamus, flatus, and flent. Now those long marks disappearing and appearing, those are just for pronunciation, right? So if you hear me say the words out loud, you'll probably hear them. Fleo, flace, flet, flamus, flatus, flent. So you can kind of hear where they're long and where they're short. So I cry, you cry, he cries, we cry, y'all cry, they cry. Imperfect, we take that flay, right, that stem, and we add bom, bas, oops, bats, bamus, batis, batis, and bont. That's your was or were translation, also just past tense, right? Flabom, I was crying, or just I cried, depending on the situation. So I was crying, you were crying, he was crying, we were crying, y'all were crying, they were crying. And then for future, for first and second conjugation, we use the bo bis bit. So flay bo, flay bis, flay bit, flay bimus, flay bitus, and flay bunt. So zoom out a little bit so you guys can see them all together. There we go. So present tense is just the stem with the endings. Imperfect, we add the bom, bas, bot. And future, for first and second conjugation only, we do bo, bis, bit. Next word we have here is meo, meare. So I kind of threw a tricky one at you because you have to look at the first and second principal parts. If you only looked at this EO, you might be confused, but it is meare, to wander. And can we think of an English word that has to do with wandering that comes from this? While I take my last sip of tea. To kind of go aimlessly through a place. It's a good English word for you. to meander. Yeah! You were in there, Rajika. I saw you. You got that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Right? Meandering is just kind of like aimlessly going around. So when we go to conjugate this verb, we have, oops, put my bolds on. Make that bold. Bump that up. 14 should be good. We have, oh, see, it's tricky. It's tricky, tricky, tricky. Because it's meare, so you can't lose this A in here as well. So it's meo, meas, meat, like meat. Meamos, meatis, and meant. It's weird to see the E and the A together, but this is one of those verbs that has it. But it's still a first conjugation verb, which means it still has to have the A in all the forms. Because it's first conjugation. Meare. So that A in meare is part of the stem. So it's got to stick around. So the stem really is mea. So you have meabam, meabas, oops, whoa, meabas, meabat, meabamus, meabatis, meabant. And just so you know, Jaden, this is a tricky one. I picked this one on purpose, right? Because it kind of tests you're kind of being pulled in two different directions because you see the E, but there's the A. The A is more important because it's right in front of the RE. So that tells you it's first conjugation. So just like you would have amo, amas, amat, you're going to have meo, meas, meat. And then for the future, you're going to have meabo, meabis, meabit, meabimus, meabitis, and meabunt. There are only a couple of verbs that kind of have that pattern where it's an EO and it's first conjugation. Meata is definitely one of the big ones. Sedeo sedere, so we're back to second conjugation. So when we are trying to say, I sit, right? The first form always, always, always right up here. Right? Sedeo, sedes, sedet, sedemus, sedatus, sedent. Imperfect, sedebam, sedebas, sedebat, sedebamus, sedebatis, sedebant. And then for the future, sedebo, sedebis, sedebit, sedebimus, sedebitis, sedebunt. Gonna keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. Bobby boo, right? For 1 and 2. We're only gonna use that for first and second conjugation verbs. That's all. And the last one to make sure that you're paying attention. Possum. This is one of our irregular verbs. So you take all of these lovely rules about first and second conjugation and you chuck them out the window because irregular verbs are going to do what they want to do. So if you remember what we said about possum, it's basically just sum. So you start with your forms of sum, which are sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt, and you add to the front pot. So sum, because it starts with an S, becomes possum. potes, potest, possumus, because it starts with an S, potestis, and possunt. So you're basically adding the POT on the front, except when it starts with an S, you're adding a POS to make it a little easier to say. So possum, potes, potest, possumus, potestis, possunt. Imperfect of sum is eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. So all we have to do, don't you autocorrect on me, all we have to do is add POT on the front. So eram becomes poteram, eras, poteras, erat, poterat. Eramus, poteramus. Eratus, poteratus. And erant, poterant. So you always start with the form of sum, and then you add the extra business on the front. In the future, ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritus, eruns. Those are my forms of sum. I will, you, I will be, you will be, he will be. If you want to change that to I will be able, ero, potero, eris, poteris, erit, poterit, erimus, poterimus, eritus, poteritus, and erunts, poterunts. So when it's an irregular verb like that, particularly sum, right, you just have to know your forms. Don't follow some rules. Don't be putting bomb, boss, bot, and bo, bis, bit. Irregular verbs don't follow the rules. So they just have to be learned by themselves. Tomorrow we'll throw third declension nouns in the mix. So if you're still feeling a little bit shaky, particularly at the front of this worksheet about first and second declension endings, right? Get those under your belt so that when you start with third, you've got a good base to start with and you're not mixing them all up. Okay? All right, that's all I got. Will the quiz have third declension? Absolutely, but the quiz will be next week. It will not be this week. Yep, you got it. So we'll practice between now and then. We'll do a lot of work with third declension. All right, thanks for coming as always. I'll see you guys later.